March 4, 1945. Above the Rhine, Lieutenant Franz Wegener, a New Age hunter, piloted his Me 62. Defying old war logic, its cockpit made the world unnaturally smooth. No violent torque, no deafening roar, only the high, steady whistle of twin Junkers Jumo jets. Below war ground on, a muddy, cratered landscape. Up here, over 500 miles per hour, he was a god of speed, an untouchable predator. His mission, target American B-17s, lumbering fortresses bleeding the fatherland dry, slashing P-51 Thunderbolt escorts like a wolf through sheep. He was uncatchable, able to engage, destroy, and disengage at will. He and his comrades were Germany's last best hope, a rapier of technological supremacy against the brute force bludgeon of Allied numbers. He was the future. He banks his Schwalbe, scanning the cold, empty blue, alone, separated from his flight. Then he saw it, a glint in the distance. Another aircraft moving at a speed that made no sense. It was not a Mustang. It had no propeller. It was a jet. A wave of relief washed over him. Another 262, a friendly. But as he closed, the relief curdled into a cold, profound shock. The shape is wrong. The fuselage is too straight, the tail too high, and the engines, they are not slung beneath the wings like on his 262. They are mounted directly in the wings, two perfectly round nacelles that give the aircraft a clean, elegant profile. And then he sees the markings, not the black cross of the Luftwaffe, but the red, white, and blue roundel of the Royal Air Force. It is an Allied jet. It is an impossibility. It is a ghost that has no right to exist in his sky. In that single, heart-stopping moment of recognition for Lieutenant Wegener and for the entire ideology of the Luftwaffe, the future is no longer exclusively theirs. To understand the depth of this shock, one must first step back into the desperate mindset of the Third Reich in its final year. By late 1944, Germany was losing. The war of attrition had been lost on the Eastern Front, the war of production lost to the industrial might of America, and the war for the skies over Germany was being lost to the sheer, overwhelming numbers of Allied bombers and long-range fighters. In this bleak landscape of impending defeat, Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels offered the German people a single, glittering hope: Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons. These were technologically advanced systems, the V-2 rocket, advanced U-boats, and above all, the Me-262 jet fighter, that would, through their sheer qualitative superiority, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The Me-262 was the centerpiece of this myth. It was proof that German genius remained supreme. Every German pilot who climbed into its cockpit was not just a soldier. He was an acolyte of a new technological faith, a belief that his machine was so far advanced that it rendered the enemy's strength irrelevant. They expected to be the sole proprietors of the jet age. Arbiters of a new kind of aerial warfare the Allies could not hope to match for years to come. They were about to discover that while they had been sprinting towards a brilliant but flawed future, the Allies had been marching towards it with a slow, methodical, and terrifyingly steady pace. This brings us to our recurring symbol, the Coca-Cola bottle, a simple, consumable object representing a system of overwhelming, almost casual abundance. The quiet symbol of this methodical, overwhelming Allied power was not a weapon, but a simple, consumable object, the Coca-Cola bottle. While German citizens were subsisting on ersatz coffee and ration bread, American GSEs and airmen across Europe were drinking Coke from bottles mass-produced in factories shipped wholesale from the United States. At airfields across East Anglia, P-51 pilots waiting for their briefing would drink from the iconic contoured glass bottle. It was a taste of home, a trivial luxury. but it was a symbol of a system of such staggering abundance and logistical mastery that it could not only build tens of thousands of aircraft, but also ensure its fighting men had access to a non-essential soft drink thousands of miles from home. It was a symbol of a different kind of war effort, one not based on a few exquisite, desperate gambles, but on a deep, broad, and seemingly inexhaustible foundation of industrial and cultural power. This was the system the Luftwaffe was truly fighting, and the Gloster Meteor was its unexpected sword. The story of the Allied jet begins not in a state-sponsored factory, but in the mind of one stubborn, brilliant man, Frank Whittle. As early as 1930, Whittle, a young RAF officer, had patented the fundamental design for a turbojet engine. But for years, his vision was met with skepticism and official indifference from an Air Ministry content with piston engines. While Germany poured state resources into its jet programs, Whittle struggled for funding, founding his own small company, Power Jets Limited, to pursue his dream. It was a story of individual genius and perseverance, a stark contrast to the top-down, state-driven German approach. It was not until the war was imminent that the British government finally recognized the potential of Whittle's work. The Gloster Aircraft Company was tasked with building an airframe for his engine, resulting in the Gloster E-28/39, a small, elegant aircraft that, on May 15, 1941, became the first British jet to take flight. As Whittle's engine proved its worth, the industrial might of Britain began to swing behind it. The project was handed over to Rolls-Royce, a company with decades of experience in building world-class engines like the Merlin. Rolls-Royce engineers, collaborating with Whittle's team, took his revolutionary but temperamental prototype and refined it. They applied their immense knowledge of metallurgy and mass production, transforming it into the Rolls-Royce Welland, the first production jet engine for the Allies. It was less powerful than the German Jumo 004, but it was far more reliable, with a service life measured in hundreds of hours, not dozens. This was the engine that would power Britain's first operational jet fighter, the Gloster Meteor. In July 1944, number 616 Squadron of the RAF traded in their Spitfires for the new Meteor F1. The contrast with the German program was telling. The Meteor was a simple, robust, and remarkably stable aircraft. It had a straight wing and tricycle landing gear that made it easy to handle. The German Me-262 was a thoroughbred, brilliant but temperamental. The British Wunderwaffe was a workhorse, steady and dependable. The Meteor's first taste of combat came not against the Luftwaffe, but against another of Hitler's wonder weapons, the V-1 flying bomb. In the summer of 1944, these pilotless cruise missiles were raining down on London. The Meteor, with its high speed at low altitude, was the perfect interceptor. The pilots of 616 Squadron became masters of the doodlebug hunt. They developed tactics to counter the small, fast-moving targets, often closing to dangerously short ranges to ensure a kill with their 420mm cannons. In a testament to the Meteor's remarkable stability, when their guns jammed, some pilots resorted to a daring tactic. They would fly alongside the V-1, slide their wingtip under the V-1's wing, and flick it over, tumbling its primitive gyroscope and sending it crashing harmlessly into the countryside. This was not a dogfight. It was a form of aerial surgery, performed at 400 miles per hour. The Meteor had proven its worth in the defense of its homeland. But as the Allied armies pushed into Europe, a new and strict order was issued to the Meteor squadrons. Under no circumstances were they to fly over German-held territory. The reason for this was not fear for the pilots' lives, but fear for the aircraft's technology. British intelligence knew that Rolls-Royce's jet engine technology, particularly the advanced nickel-chrome alloys used in the turbine blades, was years ahead of Germany's. The Germans were struggling with high-temperature metals, which was the primary reason for the short life of their Jumo 004 engines. If a Meteor were to be shot down and recovered by the Germans, the secrets of its engine could provide a quantum leap for their own jet program. The Allies were so confident in their eventual victory that their primary concern was not winning the current war, but preventing the enemy from gaining technology for a potential next one. This policy meant that for months, the two pioneering jet fighters operated in the same skies, but were kept apart like fighters in separate rings. The German pilot felt like a lone wolf, a superior being whose technology had granted him temporary godhood in a losing war. The British pilot felt like a component in a vast winning machine, his powerful new weapon held in check by cold calculation. Meteors first hunted V-1s, but only in January 1945 were they sent to the continent, to Melsbroek in Belgium. Their brief was defensive: guard the vital airfields and bridgeheads that fed the advance. There the first encounters flickered into view. Fast, inconclusive, and psychologically ruinous for German crews. A reconnaissance pilot in an Arado R-234, himself sure of untouchability, watched in disbelief as two meteors climbed to meet him at a speed he thought impossible. He dived away. The seed of doubt remained. Then came Wegener's moment. As Allied columns pressed to the Rhine in March, the leash loosened. Meteors were cleared for ground attack, and jet-to-jet sightings multiplied. No officially confirmed Meteor Me 262 air-to-air victories followed, but confirmation was beside the point. The damage lay elsewhere. The Germans' sharpest edge, the belief in exclusivity, cracked. The future no longer wore one badge, it wore roundels too. In his post-war interrogation, the legendary German ace Adolf Galland, who commanded the Me 262 unit JV-44, noted the appearance of the British jets, stating that while they did not pose a major tactical threat in the final weeks, their presence was a great shock to our pilots, who thought they were the masters of the new age. The Meteor's real victories came against the remnants of the piston-engine Luftwaffe. In one notable encounter in April 1945, a flight of Meteors was attacked by a group of Focke-Wulf FW-190s. The German pilots, likely mistaking the jets for conventional fighters, dove on them, only to watch in stunned disbelief as the Meteors simply accelerated away, leaving them behind as if they were standing still. The Meteor pilots did not even have to fight. They simply had to demonstrate a speed that broke the spirit of their attackers. By April, Meteors were strafing German airfields with impunity, destroying dozens of German aircraft on the ground, including several Me 262s that never had a chance to take off. In the final days of the war, as Allied troops overran these airfields, they found a scene of industrial collapse. They found rows of half-finished Me 262s, some without engines, others without wings. They found workshops filled with cannibalized parts, a testament to a desperate attempt to keep a handful of machines flying. The Wunderwaffe program had been revealed for what it was, a brilliant but ultimately unsustainable spasm of engineering. And amidst the wreckage of one of these airfields, an American GI, part of a technical intelligence team, sat on the wing of a captured, engineless Me 262. He pulled a glass bottle from his pack, popped the cap, and took a long drink. The sight of that Coca-Cola bottle next to the silent, broken German jet was a perfect, unspoken summary of the entire war. One was a product of a system that had run out of fuel, out of alloys, out of time. The other was a product of a system that had so much of everything that it could project not just military power, but its culture, its comforts, its very way of life onto the ruins of its enemy's homeland. The Gloster Meteor, unlike the Me 262, wasn't a war winner. Its modest combat record never turned a battle's tide. Its true significance, however, was far greater, symbolizing a different path to the future. The Me 262 emerged from fanaticism and desperation, a frantic sprint by a dying regime. The Meteor, conversely, originated from steady perseverance, methodical engineering, and industrial collaboration. It was the product of a slower system, perhaps less brilliantly innovative in a single leap, but infinitely more resilient, reliable, and ultimately powerful. The Allied jet's story illustrates how free, open collaboration between Whittle, Rolls-Royce, and a supportive government overcame a totalitarian system's desperate gamble. This testified that true technological superiority lies not in a single, flawed masterpiece, but in a sustainable, reliable system. Ultimately, the Meteor's quiet, steady Rolls-Royce Derwent engines produced a more profound sound of victory than the Me-Too 62 shriek. It was the sound of a future won not in a dazzling flash, but through the patient, inexorable power of a system capable of building a jet fighter and a bottle of Coke, delivering both to its vanquished foe.